Hey, what's the deal? Thanks for hopping in the car with Christian Addiction Recovery, the channel where like minded individuals that face similar struggles come so that we can share and discuss new ways to live the best life possible and overall become the best version of ourselves. Now, on this channel, what we're talking about when we're talking about the best version of ourselves, we're not talking about the person that's making the most money and all of that. Now, those may be byproducts of what we're going to do on this channel, but what we're going to do on this channel is really focus on emotional intelligence. Definition of emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships with good judgment and empathy. Now, I think that you can agree that we could all use some help on having our interpersonal relationships go better. All right? So, emotional intelligence is your ability to be able to face what's going on inside of you and deal with your negative emotions in a positive way, right? So you may be familiar with a couple of different ends of the spectrum of emotional intelligence. You may be familiar with like my dad's generation, very stoic. They don't necessarily talk about their feelings a whole lot, but by looking at them, you would say, oh, well, they got it together. They're not controlled by their emotions. And that is a good thing. But it is very important, if we're going to be the best versions of ourselves, that we look inside and we face those negative emotions that may be putting us in turmoil inside of our subconscious mind. Okay? Then you may be familiar with the other end of the spectrum, which is kind of this newer generation, and I'll be the first to say that I was absolutely a part of it, which is one that was convinced that everything was going to go, butterflies and rainbows in the world, and everything was supposed to work out for them. So, as you know, that's not how life works. Okay, life gives us the old 1-2 quite often. All right, so what had happened in particular situation is something happened when I was about 10 years old that really kind of threw me off course from the everything going, swell and butterflies and rainbows, as I said. So it kind of sent me into another place where I'm going to avoid this negative emotion and this pain that's inside. I'm going to do that any way that I can. All right. And a lot of times what's happening when we're not facing and handling those negative emotions in a proper way, we'll go to external sources and we'll create unhealthy attachments with those things as a way of avoiding what we really need to do, which is deal with ourselves. So for me, because I was not handling the emotion inside properly of the thing that had happened when I was 10 years old, I went to an external source, and alcohol was the first one of those sources. And what I did was built an unhealthy attachment to that thing because it helped distract me from having to work on myself and work on what was going on inside, that inner turmoil. And another thing that I attached myself to was media, movies, music, TV. I mean, even at a young age, when I got off of school, I went straight home, turned the TV on, and lost myself in the world of Zach Morris and Saved by the Bell, right? So there's all kinds of things that we can attach ourselves to. Sometimes we can even attach ourselves to good things, but in an unhealthy way. So it's not necessarily always drugs or alcohol or anything like that. Sometimes it can be people, right? And for me personally, I had developed a fear of abandonment. So when I started getting into relationships in my later teen years, I became very dependent on those relationships, thinking that I have to have this person, and if they leave me, then I'm gonna fall apart. and all this stuff was going on inside, I kind of thought I had it together and was playing the part cool, but really inside I was like, oh my God, they're gonna leave. So anytime we had a fight or anytime anything happened, it seemed detrimental to me, and I did not handle it very well. One of the ways that we attach to something is we spend time, money, and attention on that thing. So it's really what we're investing in. So if you've had a relationship that you've spent a lot of time with that person, you're most likely attached to that person. It's not necessarily an unhealthy attachment, but it is an attachment, all right? And so there's ways to figure out if it's an unhealthy attachment. Right now, I'm just talking about how do we get attached, and that's by spending our time, our talent, and our effort on something, all right? So let me just ask you a question. As a matter of fact, comment down below, what is taking too much of your time? I'll give you a couple of hints, right? Right? Okay, I'm not gonna say it. So put it down below. What's taking your time? What are you attached to? What could possibly be an unhealthy attachment in your life that you would like to maybe work on? All right. No shame here. We're all struggling. We're all dealing with things. All right. So just put it down below in the comments. Let me know. Okay. So when we have unhealthy attachments, what's happening is we're going to that source for, like, say, validation or escape, or we're going to it for fake comfort. Now, as I said, some attachments are healthy and some are unhealthy. And I'll just give you a couple of crude examples of healthy attachments. One would be the mother nursing his child. That child is obviously very attached. It's spending all of their time and all of their focus on that mother. But what they're doing is they're receiving nutrition. They're growing. They're pulling life from their mother. And also, in turn, the mother is receiving all of the love and all of the benefits that comes from nursing a child. So it's a really great two-way street, right? Now, if mother has things going on inside and she hasn't handled those things and her emotional intelligence is low, then it is a possibility to have an unhealthy attachment to your child, right? I'm sure that you've seen an unhealthy attachment in certain families where you're just like, how can that person talk to that person like that? Well, their emotional intelligence is low and they're not handling their inside first. We all need to become the best versions of ourselves first before we can actually even have a healthy relationship, quite honestly. I remember when I got out of the rehabilitation, when I did start getting back in a relationship with someone, I was very cautious. I didn't want that person to attach to me in an unhealthy way. So I was very cognitive of how much time that I was spending with them. And it's not that I didn't care about the person. I did care about the person. But I also had to not care about the person. And the way I had to not care about the person is this definition here. Definition of care, because you're going to hear me, I'm about to start saying I don't care, okay? And when I say I don't care, I'm talking about feeling concern or attaching importance to something, okay? Now, what I'm saying is that we have to be able to let go of things, right? Jordan Peterson said it very well. He said, it's not the attachment that's the problem. It's the attachment to the point of being unable to detach if you need to, right? So there's just certain situations in life where we have to let things go, right? And if we can't let things go, that's an unhealthy attachment. So addictions are obviously unhealthy attachment, or most addictions are obviously unhealthy attachment. If you're addicted to shopping and you're spending all the money that's supposed to be for the house, it's an unhealthy attachment. Even if you have extra money and you're shopping all the time, but you're shopping to avoid what's going on inside, it's an unhealthy attachment, all right? So we all have attachments in our life. It's unavoidable that we're going to have them. And that's why it's really important to raise our emotional intelligence so that we make attachments the correct way. So we go to the scripture, Isaiah 43:18-19. Remember not the former things, nor the things of old. Behold, I am doing a new thing. All right, so let me break down that scripture real quick. The former things that they're talking about, I did some research on it, and I believe that one of those, I think the things of old is talking about places, buildings. I guess back in the day it would probably have been possessions such as gold and things like that. But the other one is remember not the former things. And from my research, what I found is that that's talking about the way things used to go. So for instance, you may have gone to church back in the day and you had a very good experience there, but you're holding on to that experience and you keep on expecting God to show up the same way that he did before. All right. And what he's trying to say there from you is, you can remember that I was good and faithful to show up for you, but please don't hold on to thinking that I'm going to do that same thing again, right? I'm going to be faithful to do what I promised, but I am not going to go back to that way that I did it before. He's saying, behold. And when he says behold, he's saying pay attention. That word means pay attention. And so he's saying, behold, I am doing a new thing. So we have to be paying attention to God in a place of expectation and wonder of waiting for him to do something good in our life, right? But we can also still remember that, hey, I remember that time that God saved me. We got to remember that time that God saved us, right? But we can't keep expecting God to move that same way, because he's saying, I'm doing a new thing, right? That's what that scripture means to me. So how I don't care really helped transform my life was when I was at the rehabilitation center, and one of the therapists that we all really liked would do a couple classes during the week, and we would, we had a pretty good friendship with him, we thought. And so we would say, oh man, Ted, we know you're going to miss us when we leave. And he'd say, I don't care. And it took us off guard, because we're like, man, this is an awesome guy. Like he knows his stuff. He's got high emotional intelligence. He's what we should all be working to be. And here he is saying, I don't care. So the reason why he was doing that was to shock us and to make us realize that we are put too much attachment on these earthly things and these relationships. And what we need to be working on is ourselves. So again, the definition of care that he used is to feel concern or to attach importance to something. So obviously, what he's saying when he's saying I don't care, he's saying don't let yourself attach that importance to our friendship. It's cool, enjoy it, but when it goes, you got to let it go, right? And we can all get better at that, no matter where we're at. He could get better at that, right? He's pretty good at not caring though. But it's attaching importance to that thing. So I had attached so much importance to the feeling that I got from alcohol at a young age, and then that went into weed at another age, and then it turned into harder core drugs in my 20s, and then it ended up being pills in my 30s and prescription drugs, and all of those things I attached so much importance, and where I felt concern if I was not using those substances. And I had placed so much concern on them that when I did not have those substances, I would shoot myself into a state of anxiety that was so bad that I would literally start vomiting for days. One time I vomited for 2 weeks, every day, probably 100 to 200 times a day. I would just stay on top of the toilet, and I thought that I had a flu the first time, and so I just I didn't have insurance, and so I didn't have the money to go to a doctor, so I just kind of kept pushing through and just knowing that I would get better. And then 2 weeks later, I ended up having to go to the emergency room, and they told me that I almost died because of dehydration. They said that I had a disease called cyclic vomiting syndrome, right? But I know now, because it's gone, and I know now that it was highly due to the amount of attachment that I had put on drugs and alcohol. Okay, and all of that, and the attachment I put on drugs and alcohol, I did to avoid dealing with the trauma that had happened to me when I was 10 years old. All right. So what about you? What do you care about too much? Right? Now remember, I'm not talking about the way of caring about a person and actually taking care of someone, taking care of your family. I'm talking about why do you care about what's going on social media? Why do you attach importance to that thing? Why do you care what's happening with the news, quite honestly? All right, now I understand that we do have to take a little bit of thought to pay attention to what's going on around the world and in our area, but we don't have to place an importance on that thing because it's going to happen regardless if we worry about it or not, right? So what we have to do is come to a place of acceptance, right? I said in one of my blogs, I'll leave the link down below, but I said in one of my blogs that acceptance and expectation are two sides of the same coin, right? Opposite sides of the same coin. When you can learn to accept things, then you're going to have less expectation or attachment, right? Expectation would be, I expect this person to answer a certain way. You're placing attachment on how that person is going to answer that text message. I had placed so much attachment on the alcohol or the marijuana and put expectation that those things were going to relieve the pain that I was feeling from that trauma. And it was so bad that I remember when I was like, I believe I was like 19 or 20 years old, I went to Dallas, and I went to Dallas for this class, and I'd taken some weed with me, and I was smoking it every day, and I guess I was smoking a lot because I ran out. Now I was only like 24 hours or 36 hours from being able to go back home to where I could get more weed from my person, but I had placed so much attachment and expectation on that when it started going away, I just started freaking out. And so I went around the neighborhood, or I went around to gas stations in the area and decided that I was gonna, I'll figure out. I'm a pretty capable person, so I started going up to people. This guy at 7-Eleven was rinsing off the sidewalk with a hose, and hey buddy, you smoke weed or anything? And he's like, nah, I don't smoke weed, but these people in this apartment complex behind, they smoke a lot of weed. I can smell it all the time. You probably pull in there and figure out something. So I come pulling into the hood where I was at in Dallas was kind of the hood, right? So I go and I asked them, I said, hey, y'all know where I can get some weed? And they said, yeah, park right there. So sure enough, I parked my car, which was an 84 Mercedes Benz. Now this is the year 2000, so it was an older car, but she was my baby. And so he walks over, I walk with him behind this apartment, and he looks over the fence and he goes, hey, and signals to someone to come over. So we're talking there a little bit, and he goes, how much you looking to buy? And this is where I messed up. I said, well, it depends on how good it is. And what that did is let him know that I've got some money if it's good or whatever. So sitting there talking to him a little bit, he's like, where are you from? I'm from Austin. What you up here for? Blah, blah, blah. And after a couple minutes, I'll look over. Where's this guy he called? And when I look back, guy had a gun to my chest, a gold-plated little gun. It was probably like a 380 or something, but I remember it was gold-plated. It was the first gold-plated gun I'd ever seen. I thought that was kind of weird, but he's like, give me all your money. And I said, well, I've seen too many movies, so I got no problem giving you the money. I had about $400. I pulled it out of my pocket, And I gave it to him and I said, hey man, I'm out of town. I don't have any gas. Can you leave me $20? And he said, boy, you're lucky that I'm not taking your life in your car. And I said, well, that's actually a very good point, sir. So I'm going to go ahead and leave. I didn't say it like that. I said, all right, went and got in my car and left. But the point is that when we put so much attachment and expectation on these external stimuli to avoid handling the pain that is inside of us from past traumas or whatever the pain may be from, it can put us in some really bad situations. All right. And I just don't want anybody to have to go through anything that they don't need to. Now, if you're listening to this and you're still listening to me after all that rambling, then most likely you would like to work on your attachments a little bit. So some ways that you can do that is, I would almost bet $1 that you're probably too attached to social media in your phone. So what you have to do to start getting rid of your attachments is, you gotta guess, detach, right? Start putting your phone away for an hour. Start getting off of social media for a day. That's just a start. And it will just at least break that constant expectation and attachment. And after you do it for an hour or for a day, try it for 2 hours in 2 days, right? The thing is that we want to be able to put anything in our life down for any amount of time and be okay with it. That's when we have real emotional intelligence, right? Because then we are having our confidence in ourselves and in God, and that God is going to show up for us and he's going to be everything that we need. When we have our only attachment to God, then we're in a good place. All right. Now, obviously, like I said, when you spend time on something and talent, effort, you're going to attach to that thing. So you may be attached to your job in an unhealthy way. Well, obviously, you can't walk away from your job, but you can put less importance on the job. So if you're going home and you have the tendency to be checking work emails when you're at home and kind of going overboard, well, that's unhealthy, right? So start leaving work at work. And that way, when you come home, you have your time and your talent and your effort going into your family. And that's the good thing to attach to, okay? So let's build some healthy attachments. Let's break some unhealthy attachments. And overall, let's just not care, all right? Try to get I don't care in your vocabulary. And remember, when you're saying I don't care, you're not saying that you don't care. You're just saying that you're not going to attach importance to something that doesn't need to have importance attached to. All right, guys, thanks for sticking around till the end of the video. You see that word right there that says subscribe? Click it, because I'm a new channel. That's the only way that you're gonna know when I make a new video. All right, thanks for that. Also, like it, dislike it if it was bad, and also let me know what I could do better if you disliked it. Any kind of engagement from you guys is gonna let other people know that this is a good video and worth watching. All right, and hey, I love y'all. Take it easy. Peace.